think that's anything bad other than they just wanted to know some logistics about what year for golf for women versus what year for men. So.
Okay, awesome. I had heard back from Anthony Travel about UK's D1 bids on a couple things where they're starting some pre-negotiations because the committee had selected them as one of the shortlist cities and universities, but I hadn't heard anything back about Transy.
I think that one of their concerns is Marriott Griffin Gate did not put in for the golf, and it was it got favorable marks from, from hosting last time. And so they wanted our go ahead if they could reach out to Griffin Gate and ask them if they would reconsider.
Okay. And you know what? That probably is right at that timeline where Griffin Gate was under sale and they had a real bad window of not getting back on things.
Yeah. And I told them that, that we were in favor of Griffin Gate, that I likely it had to do with them being sold, but that I thought they did an excellent job as hosting. So.
Okay. And I can reach out to Jenna Erickson and Susan Thacker, their director of sale and assistant. Lee Dalton is still there, who coordinated the group, and Sherry Florence and all those people. So hopefully the same people will be in place.
Yeah, I was hoping so too. That would be awesome if you wouldn't mind.
Nope, I'll take care of it today.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm kind of sad. This could be, our last little time. We have to do this and convert to happy hour every month.
I'll send the bourbon.
I think we just need to go to John's place. I think that's
right.
We may run out of food here at the pool house, but we're not going to run out of wine or bourbon.
I do know Kip said he had another call, so he wouldn't be joining us. I haven't heard anything from Julian. But Quinn, do you want to start us off with your statement, or did I miss that already?
Yeah, this is the last one I'm going to read for this whole committee. So here we go.
No, Quinn. You got the final one Monday.
The one Monday. The one month of the subcommittees. Yeah, that's true.
I'm getting excited, right?
Yeah. All right. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency and Governor Beshear's executive orders regarding social distancing, this meeting is being held via teleconference pursuant to Senate Bill 150, as signed by the governor on March 30th, 2020, and Attorney General Opinion 20-05, and in accordance with KRS 61.826, because it is not feasible to offer a primary physical location for the meeting.
Thank you. So obviously, since our last meeting, thank you again for all your time yesterday. I think that was very valuable for this process, and we're almost took everything to get to Thursday, and then now we get to see the results of that. Thank you guys for the staff for putting all that together. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review the document. That we've had a couple revisions of that. And any comments or changes or things that people saw that you haven't already sent to the staff?
No.
Okay. Do you think it's appropriate at this point? Do we need to walk through them for this call?
It looked like what we discussed yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't have any. I mean, I thought it was really good. Was honestly seeing it all together.
Yeah.
Made me feel even better about it. Talking to some of our folks on campus and others, I think we ended up in the right place, focusing on kind of landing where we did and not focus so much on the competition forward part. Even the reminder, it looks like, I'm assuming the low contact, high contact clarity came from the governor's office.
It actually did not. We haven't heard anything from them regarding low contact versus high contact. That was actually
just our suggestions that they would let us know if that's correct, kind of thing.
Yeah, that was my best stab at it. And if you all want to make edits to it, I think that I think that was the idea.
Okay.
Quinn, I need to ask real quick on the high and low. Then, do you all consider that a clarification question or a recommendation? And it just matters which box we put it in.
Kevin, we've already asked and got initial feedback from the governor's office on low contact, and this list is way off. And I just sent a copy of what the conversations kind of lead, because even in some things that are considered low contact, they are still going to have some considerations given to certain aspects. Example we talked about, and that's why I suggested we maybe put those in two buckets. What Jackie told us she would prefer us to do is stick to the fall, stick to things that are actually going on. Now for Lexington, that also means what's going on in the Bluegrass Games. So you may have to get into something we normally call winter. But what I tried to do just real hurriedly in the middle of another meeting was try to look at this list and see where there's particular things we need to be sure and mention. I know in the governor's eyes, baseball was low contact, but he also definitely wants the umpire behind the mound, and he definitely doesn't want the dugouts used if we don't have to. So because of the sharing of equipment. So I think we can make it general, but Quinn, that's why those things are suggested. That's in strike through markup, by the way. If you don't have changes showing on Word, you might not see all those, but just try to give you some. That's just one person's thoughts. That's it.
Yeah, I was worried about that too, because I think some of those, even though they're low contact, like swimming and diving, if it's indoors, I don't think that's a yes. I mean, I think that would be a whole nother discussion.
Yep, and I think volleyball's in the same boat, Holly. Volleyball's in the same exact boat.
Yeah.
So however you all want to break that up, I think it's great that we make a list and it's our interpretation, and let them cut it up, because that's what they'll do. Stack will cut it up. Their goal, according to what I was told, their goal is to get baseball, softball, and if possible, some swimming going, outdoor swimming, like Parks and Rec type stuff, not the stuff that Holly and Dwayne and we might run for a championship. Talking about outdoor swimming.
Okay.
Sorry to join a couple minutes late. I was trying to send.
No, you're fine, Julian. But I do think our original charge wasn't necessarily to define what the sports were, right? Maybe from our document standpoint, we just asking for clarity that whenever they decide that they need to address what low contact sports is and address what is able to start activity on June 15th. What are those sports? Be more specific.
And Dwayne, a different thought, and maybe you all don't want to do this, but a different thought would be, this was just a bullet list. You're obviously going to have something leading in. Maybe we just say that this list kind of framed our discussions, but that's strictly left up to the state. So if we've included something as low contact that they had no business allowing, then that's fine. We're fine with it, but we're kind of giving them what sports experts think should fit in that category, and they can change it if they want to, because they've got the big pen. Maybe the lead in's important, because I do think one of the things and I've heard this from a couple of people, and Kevin, you and John and Quinn may know better than I do think there's some clarity desired, not only about high school and college, but about the Bluegrass Games too. I mean,
they're going to need it.
Yeah, exactly. And they are a staff of 0 most of the time. And so I think, if they need to go ahead and shut down, they need to be thinking about that.
Well, the dilemma for them is their money makers are soccer and volleyball.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what feeds the Bulldogs. So if they can't have those events, I mean, they fund the rest of it.
Well, I've already suggested to to Amy, that they definitely think about, think of some alternative time windows. Because their scheduled dates are pretty early in July, aren't they?
Yeah, usually that second, third, and fourth weekend.
Yep.
Julian, I think that's a good add on the first section, last bullet point. I mean, I think sometimes that's an understood thing, but it's probably good to point that out. I don't know if we need to change any wording of it, but just making sure we're saying that, the actions of the governor, local, state, health officials, all that supersedes anything we're talking about here. We're not the experts. We're just providing some guidelines and guidance. So I think that's important to point out, depending on how this gets presented, because you never know how it's going to roll out. It could be, hey, here's some notes to consider to put together something bigger, or it could be like, hey, let's just put that out. So I think it covers us just in case it does, right?
Well, I found it interesting when Jackie's last email to me yesterday, the Lieutenant Governor's office, she sent this email that said, we really need you to submit your draft plan by next week and we'll mark it up and get it back to you.
Right.
Kind of tells us all where we're standing. That's good. I'm good.
Yep.
They were all on the same page. Right.
Julian, one thing that you had, I felt like you had brought up in earlier conversations relative to the waiver. The way it's written here, we're suggesting that participants sign a waiver. And I felt like our conversation last time was less around signing and more just attesting that by being there, you're agreeing that those things don't aren't employed.
I'm afraid I dove straight into the low contact, high contact list when I got this morning, but I just think that maybe that's one of those. And again, folks, I'll defer to whatever you want, but league organizers may want to consider a waiver form. And I think we could stop at that. I don't think we want to get into signed. I don't think we want to, because I mean, here we got the governor saying he doesn't want us using paper and pen in restaurants and everything else. I don't think we want to put out something that says you need to sign something. I just think that, we do need to, I did like, and I still do, the idea that participants and families are responsible for ensuring that the people are healthy if they come to participate. But
we probably could even adjust and take the waiver language out and maybe saying the participants and activities should certify via waiver or other format that they have not felt sick.
Yeah, aren't you getting asked that? And a lot of times, if you've had anything medical the last 2 months, you're saying, you're on the fever, you feel good, they'll check your temperature, you move on.
Some people are doing it by app, some people are doing it by a checklist, some people are doing it by a verbal.
I think we're wanting to tell people that if you're going to participate, you're responsible for participation for being healthy. And because I think otherwise I can just see, autonomous leagues that use our facilities, probably aren't equipped to develop written waiver forms and do it. I hate for us to get drilled down that much. I like the discussion that Kevin had with us and Quinn last time about let's be as ethereal as we can. Let's give you things to think about.
And every organization's they'll figure out what they need to do from a liability standpoint to protect themselves. We're just trying to figure out what they need to do as a standard to even know what the issues might be, or what, that you're at least asking on the front end. People that might not be thinking about this.
So just language wise, so I'm clear here for that bullet, we're going to change it to participants in activity should certify via waiver or another format created by an institutional organization, blah, 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 blah.
That they have not felt sick, and blah, blah. Yeah. I think that works. Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
I'm comfortable with the final word. The bullet right before that is something I would suggest one other edit on. The strength and conditioning should be allowed at facilities, provided they meet the standards specified by the governor for the opening of gyms. Let's cross-reference everywhere we can.
That's a good catch, Julian.
Yeah, because that's a June 1 opening, I think. So that would be something you all could reference in your bullet to just, hey.
I think it would be good too to reference that a plan has to be in place for quarantine, isolation, and tracing that follows the governor's already set out plan.
Right.
Do we want to put that in the facility section?
Well, I think they need to have the plan for the facility, what they're going to do before they actually get practices going. So
I'll be honest with you, this is contrary to my training and what I try to preach, but I'm not sure you shouldn't put that in every section.
Yeah, and I think we kind of reference it in the second bullet, so maybe we expand from that, where it talks about workout facilities must meet standards of regular gyms and participants. That's all going to have some of those things too. Maybe we
add that
the language that Holly was talking about within that.
Yeah, it could be, add to the end of it, including but I think that's not just a facility issue. That's for if you're playing, everybody's got to have that plan. You can't mention that enough.
Right.
So Holly, give me that language one more time. I'm sorry.
I would just say something to the effect that quarantine, isolation, and tracing needs to follow the governor's outline planned as specified in, I'm gonna say blah, 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 because I don't know the exact document, but
I would say, Quinn, you're gonna be able to pull that from one of the 17 other task forces you've been working with too.
That number fluctuates.
Yeah.
Are we losing some or are we gaining some?
Yeah.
I think we also need to add in there, I know we talked about the conditioning of the students or the youth, but I think we need, I don't want to underestimate acclimatization. I just think people being inside and then all of a sudden being outside, and the water source issue, I'm just worried about heat issues. So I think people need to have a plan for acclimatization, especially according to what sport we're talking about.
And I think Holly, to your point, I thought kind of came to a really good agreement yesterday that whoever's deciding about playing, whether it's a team, whether it's a league, whether it's a facility, has got to be mindful of the progression necessary. You know,
Right.
acclimatization to being acclimation and acclimatization to being outdoors, to being back active if in case they haven't been, getting ready for then sport specific requirements. I think you could make that 2 or 3 separated by a comma. And I don't mind going together on an email a suggestion, but I think we've got to put that progression in there so that nobody's left to think that on the very first day this is approved, they can start having games.
Yeah.
Right.
That progression that you talked about, Julian, from conditioning, drill work, group drills, and then active competitive practice. That's the progression we talked about that we probably missed here as well.
Well, we're breaking ours down into, you know, initial just strength and conditioning and no game simulations, et cetera. We're having to break our timeline down quite a bit just because if we don't, I know what'll happen. So
I mean, I think we don't, yeah.
I'm gonna send you a quick sentence and see what y'all think.
And if we don't address it, I mean, obviously there's gonna be some variance of, you know, whether that's 1 day, 2 days, to some people do it.
Yep.
But I think it's important to make sure there's some. That way, at least you know. Because if you go out there and your plan is to have 2 days of conditioning before you play youth baseball, at least as a league, you're seeing the condition of these kids before you do play on day 3.
Yep. Yep.
Versus just playing the first game and figuring it all out together.
I would also suggest putting something in about the numbers gathered at one time that follows along with the governor's guidelines of 50, you know, so that may mean that if you have a baseball practice with 30 kids and the next baseball practice is another 30 kids, they need to stay in the car until those kids have left the field.
So I guess, and probably our best way to address that is more paying attention to the amount of people in any groups, keeping in mind that we can't even get to groups of 50 or more until, what is that, July 1?
July 1. Mm-hmm.
That way, we're not necessarily saying they got to stay in the car, but you just can't be having that many more people there, right? So, like, I think I've seen some of the things that the guidance that some of the leagues have done have pointed to that. Probably because all they have is the governor guidance, right? But we don't know what things we're not talking about, right? Like what other things where people are not in cars or where people, you know, I think I've heard some questions about people saying my kid got dropped off and, you know, like the normal thing, where do they go? What do they do? But we're really worried about the number increase and how you control it and the more exposure, but also having some sense of who's actually involved in the game or contest or practice. So if an issue comes up, you know who you're dealing with. So, I mean, so I'm just trying to think, Holly, exactly what you're saying, but broad enough to where it can address some things that we're not thinking about. Because I love that language from the baseball, softball stuff. That
Maybe it's simple enough to say, you know, we recommend that you adhere to the governor's restrictions upon number of people allowed to gather on these timelines, July 1st, you know, 50 people or less.
Or maybe you're limiting the spectators to only those involved or family of youth, you know, because these other teams or kids or, you know, other parents, they have no need to be there.
Well, I think if you're like, let's say you're soccer, one of the club soccer leagues, and you're going to have 2 fields next to each other, and you think you're going to do you're going to go sideways, and you're going to have, you could easily have over 50 kids quick, you know? So I think just something in there that says, hey, remember, we're not supposed to have more than X number in a gathering.
Yeah. But there's so many dates and numbers out there. I think the more we can remind, the less confusing it is for even us. Because the different sports will dictate that a lot differently. If you got somebody playing in a tennis match, it's a totally different situation for what leeway you have. But like you said, you're talking about, say, a baseball practice and another one starting, depending on how big a team you're talking about, you could be getting upwards with parents included pretty quickly.
So I just went ahead and threw together a quick sentence on that, just get your feedback. The subcommittee recommends all leagues and teams, and organizations, whatever nouns we want to put in there, adhere to the governor's guidelines for group gatherings based on the current phase.
Phase as of that time.
Phase of that time, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
With any subsequent adjustments.
it looks like some of them are taking those approaches. So it's helpful that, so like just like the baseball, softball stuff that's coming, that will come out, somebody else will have what other things. We're more helping them than we are helping the actual getting to the actual parents or conversation as far as what things they need to be thinking about.
And I just sent you guys that. It's probably, as I tend to do, over-engineered, but just a look at the progression stuff. And feel free to just hit delete if you don't like it. Oh, my wife does that all the time.
Hey, Julian, I don't think oh, there it is.
It just came in.
I forgot I've got a delay on Gmail. I got a oops feature where if I click send and I shouldn't, I can say unsend. Gives me 30 seconds to say don't send that crap. Which, by the way, Kevin, has bailed me out more than once.
I was thinking, I didn't know it was on there and I need to figure it out.
Yeah.
One other point I think that might be worth inserting, if you all think it's valuable. Some of the other subcommittees that we're working with that are working with large gatherings or gatherings of 50 people have developed plans and inserted recommendations that encourage staggering of people entering and exiting areas and enclosed spaces. That's particularly something we've talked about with our churches and our faith-based organizations. Would that be helpful?
You're going to have a plan.
Go ahead, John.
I was just saying, at any of those entry points into the facility, they're going to have a plan, because that you have a crush of people who may or may not socially distance. And if you got ticket sales, right, they may or may not socially distance. So even on the ground where you're seeing it every 6 feet now, putting something down, at least doing your due diligence. You're going to see that with hotels at front desks and things, and elevators where there's going to be a limit on who can get on and how many.
Yeah, I think we got to have an established entry and exit points for any of these facilities. But I think it's kind of a little bit of Holly's point about even this interaction, whether you're talking about 2 adjacent soccer fields or going into a park, then the next practice or game. I think obviously the car situation, everybody staying in your car to everybody's gone, addresses that, but that's just one way to address it. What if you don't have that kind of scenario, or it's walk up kind of crowd? You probably need to be able to address to some point. I don't know how we mentioned the have an entry and exit plan that does promote social distancing and allows those guidelines to be met.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Dwayne. Even if you tell people to stay in their car, if two 15-member baseball teams all get out of the car at the same time and head up because it's their game time plus parents, you're over 50 pretty quickly. And maybe Quinn, if the wording on the religious ceremonies was good enough, it probably could be very close to what we're talking about.
Right.
That's exactly what I was thinking as well. If y'all are comfortable with I don't have that language right in front of me here, but
where do we say one other thing? I mean, the elephant in the room, maybe I've watched too many of the 5 o'clock briefings, but where do we say that even if you can, if you're not ready, don't? If you have questions about your plan, you have questions about your PPE, it's not essential that you have your first workouts on the 15th if you're not ready. I mean, because that's general, but I think in our area, that's where we know there's the most vulnerability. The people are going to want to jump out there full blow for day one. I don't know, just thoughts.
Yeah, I think, Julian, I think that's a good point. And to go back to the faith-based subcommittee again, they've included at the top of their report a statement saying and emphasizing that a lot of the houses of worship in Lexington won't open right away as soon as they're able to do so until they have plans in place and that they make sure they can comply with the governor's orders. So
I don't think that's a bad idea. I personally don't. I mean, to let the very, very first thing people read, if, we have found in my particular business that the first 140 characters is all that gets read. Because as soon as you get out of a Twitter range, you're done. Well, maybe we put that out there first. Hey, we're going to give you some ideas, but if you're not ready, don't worry about it. It's okay. Because I worry about, the cleanliness aspect. I worry about little things about baseball, like cleaning the balls in between. I worry about, in between batters. I worry about all kinds of stuff as far as us opening up with even recreational play. Because I think that we want to have covered the city and Mayor Gordon's backside as much as we can, knowing that people are probably not going to adhere rigidly. It's like
I wonder if we should have maybe and I just kind of jotted some ideas down, but maybe something that says, you need to ensure that your facilities do or can comply with the governor's recommendations, as well as CDC, the World Health Organization. This would include entrance and exits. This would include signage, maybe just kind of an overarching, and maybe that's already going to be included in all of them. I don't know, but I think a lot of it kind of goes back to that, to what's already been kind of set in motion.
Trying to think of anything else. Has everybody got a chance to digest what Julian emailed? I think that's good.
I've got it all. We've got all the answers for athletics, Dwayne. I just got it by email. This company says that Stop in the Name of Love company is providing disposable one and done masks, rolls of 100 for people to use. Basically, it's on a roll. You put it on as soon as you're done, you peel it off. They've got it all fixed. The answer for athletics.
Oh yeah. Got a few of those too.
Oh, I'm telling you, the answer, I have figured out that the one industry that can't tell me they shut down during all this is marketing and salespeople. No offense, Kim. But for people that have, maybe you've been able to turn them away. I'm in the middle of a tournament. I'm in the middle of this. Call me back. They've all said, well, you've got some time at home. Would you look at it?
Trying to see. I'm just looking through a couple of these different ones to see if there's anything that can help us.
Kim, I told Leah, that's why she should be out there hustling right now.
That's
Everybody-
right.
Everybody's available.
Everybody's available. It's certainly a delicate balance, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Do
Well,
we
the
need-
good thing is most of them you can tease them pretty good and say, hey, by the way, come on, really, come on.
Yeah, is this the time, right?
So do we need to circle back to where we are ending on the low contact sport part of it? Are we taking that out, or hey, here our assumptions, our low contact sports include the following, how do we addressing that in this document? Something else from me.
Kevin, you may, because you the governmental liaison, so to speak. I mean, I don't know that they were expecting definitions crafted by this group, but I do think I think it would help them if they knew what we thought it was when we made our recommendations. That's the only reason I said what I did earlier. In case
You're right. I mean, we were looking for recommendations and kind of what the intent of the recommendation was, but not drilling down to the actual definition there.
Right. Dwayne, I'm good either way, whether you want to totally take it out or whether you want to do what we talked about earlier and just say that, look, here's our marked up list. This is our premise. And if that's wrong, just tell us, because this is going to be submitted, and trust me, they're going to grade it, mark it up, tell us what needs to change, and send it back. So I don't think there's any harm in telling them what we were thinking.
Okay.
But I'm more than comfortable with whatever y'all decide.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts no matter what. I mean, if you don't feel like we're determining anything, obviously if it's right, then, that's probably the only way it will be used as is, right?
Well, and I'm going to tell you, Dwayne, in all candor from my conversations with Dr. Stacken, and I know that, I'm conscious of the fact that we're on YouTube, but I know that they have bigger fish to fry than athletics and really expect our expertise.
Gotcha.
They really do. So I personally would favor just going ahead, let's mark it up. I do personally, not just because I sent it to you guys, but personally, I think that we can kind of qualify low contact. We're not just giving you carte blanche, but here's a couple things you need to think about. And basically say, when Chairman Peavy called us together, this is kind of what we think. If any of these in the wrong category, tell us and we'll change our recommendations.
Okay. I mean, I don't have any issues with where we are. I know you made some changes. I do agree, probably concentrate on things that are happening in the short future is probably where we are. Yep. Probably narrowing that up a little bit. But I think the biggest thing is, just so there's no confusion, I think that is important for them to know what our thoughts are on how people take what low contact sport means.
Yep. Well, hell,
So
we didn't clearly
about that conversation is worth it.
Well, remember, he didn't clearly define originally what youth was. We had to seek that clarification. So
That's right.
It's important that we kind of lay out. And I think the other thing is, when you leave a list of 8 or 10 things that are low contact and we don't have any hesitations about,
Right.
That gives people hope. Hey, wait a minute, we're going to be able to see some things actually happen.
That's true.
So,
but you also rather make sure that people are not thinking some other things that's not.
Absolutely. It's kind of like,
maybe this is part of already in the introductory statement and already assumed because this is the charge of this committee, but do we need to include reference that we are talking about middle school, high school and collegiate level as to not trigger any discussions on the other?
Well, but I think, and let me be the minority voice here. I think we need to say that, but I think we also need to say these could readily be applied to levels below.
Sure.
In other words, we didn't try to drive out of our lane, but we couldn't help but give you some best practice thoughts for those.
That's great.
Yeah.
You see what we're saying, Quinn? You're shaking your head. And the longer your hair gets, the more we can tell that you're shaking your head. You're a dark-haired guy like me. It's funny. May 25th, 10 o'clock. My guys got me the early appointment, baby. It just keeps getting stacked higher and higher and higher.
You guys still, staff wise, you guys still turn this in at noon today for review purposes?
We'll be putting it together today. We just wanted to make sure the subcommittees knew they had to have their final stuff in by noon today, but we'll be working on it. I've got drafts of about, I think, 5 or 6 so far ready, but we've got all the information we need, so it's just a matter of putting it all together. It's
Good.
Good.
Well, we appreciate you resourcing it, and I know I'm one that, particularly when you get in this kind of a think tank, you just throw things at the wall and see what sticks. I appreciate you making it coherent.
Yep. Happy to do it.
Dwayne, you need anything else from us?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think you've done such a hell of a job. You're just about done.
I'm speechless. I haven't been much there.
That's awesome.
As you can probably see, if you hadn't spent enough time with me, I'm a talker and I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, I tried to get over my bashfulness.
From day one to now, obviously, I mean, we're all affected by this, and I mean, hopefully the charge is hopefully we've represented you guys well from a staff perspective, to take this seriously and know that we're trying to help Lexington reopen and stay open. I mean, I think that's the charge of this group, and I, John, Holly, Kim, Julian, specifically want to be able to point you out, accepting this responsibility along with me, and call us back when you need us.
Yeah, I tell you, this has been a whole lot more pleasant than the, I'm calling it the doomsday plan that I've been working on, which would take our fall sports and play them in between winter and spring.
Oh.
If we didn't get a fall this year. Well, you got to have a doomsday plan
Yeah.
So coming up with that and reducing seasons, and Kate Ramsey's not going to like me very much. Yeah. Kate's not going to like me very much because I got to ask her how many. Okay, here's 5 different dates I need you to check. But, we'll get through it.
So Kevin, you mentioned something on Monday. Is that something I or the others will be involved with?
Dwayne, that's something that I think you have gotten an email from Quinn about. It's kind of the wrap-up call with all the subcommittee chairs.
Okay. I've got so many calendar updates, there's no telling what. I just accept them all.
Is it possible for us to get a final copy of the report from our group?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Quinn, you haven't sent me anything yet on the calendar standpoint, but you got me an email. Okay, so I'll check that.
Yeah, it was an email. I think it went out 2 days ago, but I can resend it to you if you need me to.
Just for future reference, Quinn, what do you all use in city government for document sharing and like collaborative documents? Do you have a tool y'all use?
Well, typically, if we're doing something for document share, we use something like Google Docs.
Okay.
Yeah, but with this, all the subcommittees have just been so different in what people use that we've just kind of been doing it ourselves and just adding as people have us.
Well, and it's funny because what I have found through all of this with different groups is that, sometimes the groups were so entrenched in their old meeting ways and stuff. It's been like, oh, heck, we need a plan for this and we need to think for this. It's making everybody relook at the way they're doing business. I've got a board chair we have an 18-member board, 4 advisory members, and a 12-member staff. So until we get to 50 people in one room, we can't have a meeting in person. But he's anxious to have an in-person meeting. We got to have. I don't like this Zoom stuff. Man, it's been a challenge for those 2 or 3, and I can look at the smiles on the face of the Urban County government staff, and I can just see that probably all 15 council members aren't the exact same on their tech abilities, and staff's not all the exact same, and there's some you got to spoon feed and some you're good with. So I'd say
they're just like our council is much like your board of directors. They are wanting to be back here and being able to do the meetings like we have historically done them.
Yep, exactly. We're now working on what I was on this morning with, several states that connect us are working on a return to work plan. And right down to cleaning up equipment you loaned out, but also what's that date look like and what are we going to do when we get back? And we've already put a furniture strap like a mover would use around our refrigerator and locked it down because no common storage of stuff. We've had to, I mean, it's crazy what you've had to think about that you never would have thought about. So good luck to all of you. Dwayne, thanks for leading us.
Dwayne, thanks a lot.
Yep,
No
here,
problem.
here.
I mean, it's been a pleasure getting to know each and every one of you even more. And thanks again to the staff. And all right,
Kevin, I know you know if you need us, holler.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And Quinn, like I said, this weekend, if something comes up, you're Melissa or anything, Kevin, let me know. And I did, Melissa, I did get your invite. Accept it, done.
And Holly, I just got your email and it's a long answer, so I'll give you it. It was a lot of fun. I had a blast. But let me just say this. It was back when the first Coach Lane was very young. So he probably made some mistakes with us. But he learned from them. I'll send you a funny email later on.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Dwayne.
everybody.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Everybody have a good weekend.
Bye.